What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the latest episode of Respect Coin. I'm your host, Michael Bolling, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just going to say it straight up. Last week was an abomination. It was terrible, but we were happy to have Marco on the pod. He gave out bills. The Bills won. So if you were listening, you definitely cashed on that. But as we do in the beginning of these shows, we'll start with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good, if you can find a good from last week's Bears game, it was simply because our tailgate in the South Lot was maybe a top 5 tailgate in the South Lot. That's really all the good that happened last week. I said I wasn't going to bet any props. I obviously am a liar because at the tailgate, talked with one of my buddies. We both bet DeAndre Swift to score, and he scored. So that was the only good from last week. It was simply the tailgate. On to the bad. The bad was we would have cashed, but we didn't have a touchdown pass from Caleb Williams. Now, I'm not hating. Caleb played really well. He was really clutch in that fourth quarter, made some really good throws. You can see that connection with Roma Dunze. It's really exciting to see him kind of continue to progress and to have a good game after a few weeks straight of clunkers. So shout out to Caleb. I mean, I thought he played really well. Would have loved to see him toss one in, and the ugly, if you had Bears money line, I tried to tell you guys. I mean, we have literally invented 4 different ways to lose games this year alone, and that is not counting any of the other games we've experienced over the last 5 to 7 years. So it was a tough one, man. I was pretty much walking out of the stadium as the kick was blocked to give the Packers their, I think, 11th straight win over the Bears. It's kind of hard to call this a rivalry anymore, and it pains me because I hate Packers fans more than anything maybe in the whole world, but it's just how we get down, man. So hopefully we have a much more fluid and structured operation this week against the Vikings. Another division game. Then we go to Detroit on Thanksgiving. It's not getting any easier. It's going to get tougher from here on out, but that was last week. It's time to look forward because it's a new week and a new opportunity to make some money. And Thursday Night Football got us started off. Ugh, if you had the under, I'm sorry. There was a lot of people on the under yesterday. Under first half cashed. I hit that. But just because it's snowing doesn't mean that these teams won't score. And honestly, I was a little surprised to see the Browns score as much as they did. The Steelers defense didn't have their best game, but typical AFC North game. If you watch any of these games, you know what I'm talking about. These games are normally always close, especially in that division. But Vegas has your money. If you bet on Thursday Night Football, Vegas has your money. The public was so heavy on the Steelers. It was outrageous. I think it was 85, almost 90% of spread bets and money line bets were on the Steelers, and they, of course, did not win. Shout out to Kevin Lapka. He was the first one to call out. Honestly, I'm going to give him some kudos. The dude knows Thursday Night Football picks. He's been pretty hot for the last 5 or 6 weeks. We've had the right side on a lot of these, and he mentioned it's probably the Browns. I went and took a look at some of the splits, and I agreed. And so the Browns came through. Jameis Winston had one of those classic Jameis Winston games. He's throwing the ball all over the place, but somehow, some way, gets them down there. And Nick Chubb scores 2 touchdowns, and they pull off the upset. So very much thoughts and prayers if you thought that the weather was going to affect the total. The total sailed over by the time the game ended. So a tough start for a lot of bettors. But as we look towards tonight, if you're watching this, you see I'm wearing my Bulls shirt. Big day today. Got a chance to take an early look at tonight's NBA Cup court. And if you're familiar with last year's, it is extremely red. It was less red, I think, than last year's, less bright. It's a little more muted, but it is an absolutely awesome court. I got to run around, shoot some half-court shots, drained one, had a blast. But the one takeaway I'll say before I get into this game, they're playing with a different basketball. If you watch the game previous when they played the Cavs, the announcers were kind of talking about it's a different basketball. And the quote that I heard from the broadcast was, the players say it sucked. And I'm not going to mince words, but I did touch both basketballs at the same time, and there was a difference. I don't know if that's going to have any real effect on the outcome of this game, but just thought that I should mention. So let's get into the NBA Cup game tonight. Hawks at Bulls. Bulls +1 at home. Very interesting. And again, I will reiterate, if you are betting tonight, check all your sports books. There's profit boosts everywhere for these NBA Cup games. They're giving out 25%, 33%, depending on how much you bet, how often you bet. You'll have a different kind of profit boost to use. And they're on FanDuel, they're on DraftKings, they're on Caesars, BetMGM, everywhere. So before you place your NBA Cup bets, make sure to use your profit boosts to give yourself a little more juice and a little more value. So let's dig into the splits. The Hawks, -1 at the United Center. 82% of the money is on the Hawks -1. So the Sharps really like Atlanta. 87% of the money is on the over. And the over-under is 246. So if you were listening last week, I talked a lot about the 237. This is a completely different ball game. It feels like Vegas has caught on to the overs that the Bulls have been allowing. I mean, in just a week, the Bulls allowed 147 points in a game. That's going to help you tremendously if you're betting the overs. So I did watch pretty intently the Hawks game versus the Warriors the other night. I had a bet on Steph Curry. He did not come through. I will not put him as the coin disrespector, though, because I needed him to score 30. It's kind of asking a lot. But the game was a blowout. And truthfully, my assessment of the Atlanta Hawks is it's kind of a sloppy operation, right? I mean, you have an all-star guard in Trae Young. You have an up-and-coming star in Jalen Johnson, who I have a ticket on to win Most Improved Player of the Year. Dude's been balling. The only thing that might hold him back is the fact that the Hawks are not a very good team, at least to my eyes. I haven't dug into the numbers too much, but they look pretty bad against the Warriors. The Warriors are playing good basketball. So there's an opportunity here, I think, to get some value on the Bulls. Public money normally comes flying in on the Bulls, so this could end up being a pick'em by the time we get to game time. It's pretty much a pick'em anyway. We're just talking about the difference between 1 point. But don't forget, these two teams have played each other a ton, and some big games, if you consider the play-in tournament for the playoffs, big games. They've matched up twice in the last 2 years. The Bulls have come out on top on both of those occasions. So the interesting thing here is these teams know each other really well. And tonight, I'm interested to see what adjustments are made. They also played each other not too long ago. I think a couple weeks ago, they played each other in Atlanta. So something to take a closer look at, obviously. Let's take a look at the money line splits. 69% of the money is on the Hawks money line. But as I mentioned, 57% of the public is on the Bulls. Public money is always going to come in on the Bulls. We are crazy Chicago sports fans that are expecting different results. We tend not to get them, but for me, I'm going to really take a hard look at this Bulls money line bet. You're getting a little value because you're catching a point. I do think there's going to be a lot of hype in the building. I know there's a lot of events going on. And anytime you get an opportunity to come home after a loss, they've had a day off, they've been able to kind of catch their breath. They're on a crazy stretch of games where the schedule is not doing them any favors. But I think I'm in on the Bulls tonight. I have been disappointed in the past, but I do think they're a good matchup for the Hawks. The Hawks have their stalwarts, right? Trae Young always diming it up against the Bulls. Their bigs are not as, aggressive as someone like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had his way with the Bulls on the road or in the home game a couple nights ago. We're not going to see that kind of production from someone like a Clint Capella. But on the other side, I think our guards have given their guards fits over the last couple years. Kobe White has had really good games against the Hawks. Zach LaVine, who I'll get to in a little bit, has had really good games against the Hawks. This is feeling like if you could have a new rival in a time where both teams have kind of underachieved, like this is a team we see a bunch. This is a team that we're very familiar with as Bulls fans. So I'm going to take the Bulls tonight. I think they're going to put out at least a strong effort. And the fact that the total is 246 means a lot of parlays should cash tonight. So if you're trying to get together with your buddies and put in some lottos, some long shots, this is the game to do it for. This is by far the highest total of any game on the board tonight in the NBA. And let me remind people, the NBA Cup is a very different beast. These guys are playing for money. They're trying to get into this knockout stage so they can earn the money. And your tiebreakers come down to point differential. So you will not see the starters coming out too early. They need to make sure they stay in these games. You are going to see them play till the final whistle. And that's very exciting for basketball fans. So I'm going to take the Bulls tonight. I'm also going to take some props, and I'll give you the picks a little later. But some players I want to give you some notes on to target. Zach LaVine has had 10 straight games versus the Hawks with 20 or more points, including a 50-point game a couple of years back. Really awesome performance. If you were watching then, dude was unconscious pretty much all of the night. Trae Young on the other side, 13-plus assists in 6 of the last 7 versus the Bulls, including 16 assists in the very last matchup they had back earlier in November. So 2 things to watch. One more. Vooch is averaging 11.3 boards per game versus the Hawks. We did bet on this game previous. We did take Vooch and Trae Young to go over their totals on rebounds and assists, respectively. I'll save my picks for a little bit later, but quick hint, that's going to be involved. So looking towards the Bulls to get a dub tonight at the United Center. I'm going to be at the game. I might mix in some first baskets. I don't know. I usually am just pretty much waiting until playoff series to actually win these because it's a crapshoot during the regular season. But I do kind of like Vooch first basket tonight. He didn't play particularly well in the last game, didn't have his kind of patented strong effort, turning into double-double. So I think Billy Donovan will want to get him involved early. Jalen Johnson is going to be a little bit of a matchup nightmare tonight. So those are the 2 guys I would target. I haven't looked at the lines, but Vooch and Jalen Johnson tonight. Also, Bogdanovich always kind of kills us, so he might be in the mix. But take a peek at the socials on CHSN, my personals at Mike Alex Bolling. I might have some first basket picks before game time. So I'm on Bulls money line, and I'll give out some player props a little later. Let's switch gears. We have a Bears game to cover. Unfortunately, we are in the hardest part of the schedule. Like I mentioned off the top, they are hosting the Vikings, who are 8-2. Really interested to see how they bounce back after yet another crushing loss. Let's dive into some of the numbers. 57% of the money is on the Vikings, and 68% of the public is also on the Vikings spread. Right now, it is -3.5 to the Vikings. You're catching 3 and a hook if you're on the Bears. And it's interesting because I would think this spread should be a little more inflated. I do think Vegas knows that there's talent on this Bears team, but the problem is the structure, the organization of, the play calling and situational football. So we'll see if the Bears can get out of their own way, but I was surprised to see the spread only at 3.5. It could move. I'm imagining Bears fans are going to get in on this while we have a hook, so I'm not thinking it's going to go the other way. If you are betting the Vikings, my advice would be to wait and see if some of that public money comes in, so you don't have to get crushed by the hook if it does come down to that. One thing I did want to mention on this is the total. So a lot of people bet totals early in the week based on weather. I mentioned the Browns-Steelers game. There was weather. People hammered the under. They were very wrong. This weekend, the Bears and Vikings total is over under 39.5. So a 20-21 game. gets you over. I do think it's going to be in that range. There may be a little more points than people think, because while it might look gloomy and gray, it's going to be in the 50s again. I was there last week. It was in the 50s with some sun. It was beautiful. Might not be as much sun, but I don't think the weather is going to be a big factor. And the big thing to look for is the wind. So if you're waiting till Sunday, check the weather report, look specifically to the wind. You got a rookie quarterback who's still kind of learning his way. You've got a quarterback in Sam Darnold on the other side who is a tendency sometimes to throw some bad interceptions. And this defense, I believe, both defenses, in fact, have a good tendency to get some turnovers. So I don't know that the under is necessarily the best play because the weather isn't going to be a major factor. Now, this could be two defenses showing off and really keeping the other offenses in check. That would be what I would lean on if I like the under. For me, right now, I haven't made the bet yet. I think I'm going to take the over. I do think Justin Jefferson is going to have a huge game against our banged-up secondary. And on our side, I think, Thomas Brown showed a lot in that first week as offensive coordinator, getting the plays in really soon and making it nice and clear for Caleb. And obviously one of the big keys to last week's success for the offense was Caleb had the least amount of time to get rid of the ball and had one of his best games of the season. So they're dumbing it down a little bit. They're telling him if the first read's not there, pull it down, run. He ran for, I think, 70 yards, which was awesome to see. And I kind of thought, being in the building and watching him, when he was running the ball, was getting him more engaged. He was much more, excited. You saw the animation on his face when he wanted to go for it on that fourth down, took the check down to Roschon Johnson, moved the chains. So you're starting to see that response from this Bears offense, and hopefully they can put together another solid effort, good balance in the run game. And one thing to note, DeAndre Swift was limited in practice yesterday. I'm recording this on Friday, so limited on Thursday. Did not practice Wednesday with a groin injury. But there was a lot more balance between him and Roschon Johnson. Both of them scored touchdowns last week. So I do think, especially early, you're going to see a continued emphasis on running the football and keeping Caleb Williams in a place where he could, execute the play action, keep the defense off balance. So kind of like the over. I think both offenses will probably get what they want unless these defenses decide they want to step up and make this Big Ten rock fight, so to say. So that's my take on the Bears game. I will not be betting the result of the game. I'm definitely not even going to bet the spread, even though we have the hook. This team has, ruined me way too many times at this point, so I'm leaving it off, but might take a look at the over. As we continue, my favorite part of the week, the Coin Disrespector and the Coin Respector Awards. And I got two decent ones. If you watched Thursday Night Football yesterday and you participate in fantasy football or you bet it, and you had anything to do with Najee Harris, you probably lost. My guy was pretty much getting his cardio in yesterday. So our Coin Disrespector of the week is former Alabama running back Najee Harris. And maybe, I don't know where he's from. I didn't have the heart to look it up. Maybe he's just not a snow guy. I'm imagining he hasn't played in the snow a ton, which is kind of interesting. If you're going to play in Pittsburgh, you're going to get some snow. So he's got to be better in those situations, because last night was not it, Chief. So many people probably had his anytime touchdown. He did not. He didn't even get close, really. He got vultured by Jaylen Warren, which you hate to see. He had 16 rush attempts for 41 yards. That's 2.6 yards per carry. That ain't going to get it done. He did have 2 catches. So if you had him, if you had props on him, I'm pretty sure you lost everything. And if you started him in fantasy like I did in 2 leagues, he's been good this year. I'm not gonna hate. I'm not gonna hate on Najee Harris. He's been good. But last night, he was atrocious. And I know that somebody that's listening to this feels the same way. So if you had him in fantasy like I did, he did not come through. I think he had under 6 points, probably 5 points, something like that. Not your best, Najee, but we're getting close to the playoffs. You got an opportunity to redeem yourself. And I sure as hell hope that you do. So enough with the bad. Let's get to the good. The person who respects coin the most this week is the process himself, Joel Embiid. Man, if you took a look at what's going on in Philly with the Sixers having the worst record in the NBA, I believe they're 2-12 now with 3 All-Stars, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, obviously Joel Embiid. What a tough one. We're going on narratives, and one of the things that I saw in the media was apparently Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid for being late to meetings, kind of got overblown, but they're looking for accountability in Philly when you start like this, and that's a tough sports city. So I was betting the narrative. I looped in Kev. I was like, listen, let's bet him for King of the Court. I don't know if anyone bets King of the Court. It's on DraftKings, but we took a bet on him to have a double-double. It was only minus 135. It was a great buy low situation because he was coming back from injury. He hasn't played that much this year. Pretty confident in that. And I also took him to score 35 points, which was 5-1 on DraftKings, because I felt like the troll that Joel Embiid is, he saw all the media criticism, and I figured he was going to try and go crazy. And he did. I'm not gonna set this up anymore. My guy came through. It did take the entire game though, and one of the reasons why I will say our coin respecter of the week is Joel Embiid is because he could have checked out of this game at so many different times. Paul George hyperextended his knee again, left the game. Tyrese Maxey was on a minutes restriction, did not play the last 7 minutes of the game. Now you might think, this is a perfect opportunity because Joel Embiid is the main focus. They got to run the offense through him. Yes, that is correct. But after the third quarter ended, he was sitting on 8 rebounds, and I think he had 28 points, something like that. But he left the court because he knocked knees with someone. You never know with Joel Embiid. So I'm waiting on bated breath, trying to hope to God that he doesn't just check himself out of the game. He comes out, or he does not start the fourth quarter, and the Grizzlies went on a crazy run. They were up like 16 points in a flash, and he knocks knees with someone again, and then I'm thinking he's not coming back in the game. This is a blowout. But shout out to Joel Embiid. Shout out to Nick Nurse for leaving him in there because he did go to work. He got some fouls. He knocked down his free throws. He cashed the double-double. He cashed the 35 points. And everyone went home happy. They actually made a decent run. He had an opportunity to hit Kelly Oubre in the corner for an open jumper to bring the game within 1 possession late. Kelly Oubre cut instead of staying in the corner. Joel Embiid turned it over. The Sixers lost by 6. But I didn't care about the game. I didn't care about the spread. I didn't care about any of the result. Then Joel Embiid cashing double-double and over 35 points. So Joel Embiid, you are this week's winner of the Respect Coin Award. Shout out to the process. I mean, honestly, I have no idea what Philly's going to do now. Could you tank for Cooper Flagg? I mean, you have too many good players on there, but all the players on that team kind of love sitting out games. So maybe they will just tank and see if they can get themselves a high draft pick. All right, let's move on to the finale. We'll talk some plays of the week. And I mentioned and teased them earlier. I'm not going to go too crazy this week, but I am going to go pretty hard during this Bulls and Hawks game, this NBA Cup game. I love the NBA Cup because of what it means for bettors. I think the players get very invested because money's involved. And I also think that if this game's close, both teams are going to be hard charging to get their numbers and get this win. So first, I've got 2 plays, one of which is going to be a repeat play. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm taking Vooch, 10+ boards, Trae Young, 12+ assists. It's plus 168 on FanDuel. Really good value for a bet that we cashed a couple weeks ago. Feel like we're going to see a lot of the same tonight in this matchup. Like I mentioned earlier, these two teams know each other really well, and the adjustments that you can make are probably not very much in vogue because these numbers keep cashing. So not going to stray too far. Give me Vooch to get 10 boards. Give me Trae Young to have 12 assists. It's almost 2-1. It's plus 168. Lock that in. And then separately, I gave you some numbers on Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine has been a really big bright spot for this Bulls team. I've mentioned it on previous episodes. Really having a blast watching him cook. The funny part about tonight is the numbers really support betting him to score 20 points. So to start this, 20 points from Zach LaVine, and on the other side, Jalen Johnson, 15 plus points. It's plus 102 right now, so you're still getting plus money. Jalen Johnson for the Hawks had 20 points in the last game against the Bulls. Zach LaVine has scored at least 20 in 10 straight games against the Hawks. This feels like a really safe, really fun play. The over-under is 246. Vegas is expecting a ton of buckets in this game. So lock in Zach LaVine, 20 plus points. Jalen Johnson, 15 plus points, plus 102. Both bets on FanDuel. If you are betting anything else in this game, holler. I want to see the long shot parlays. I probably will put one together because I'm just obsessed with the NBA Cup. So make sure you're keeping an eye out on socials. Mine at Mike Alex Bolling and at CHSN with 2 underscores to see those long shot parlays. And then finally, we'll wrap up with the Bears. I mentioned I'm taking a look at the over, but for player props, stop me if you've heard this one before. I'm going back to the Cole Kmet well. He's hit this 3 catches. He got him again last week, doing it. And I'm parlaying that with Justin Jefferson to have over 6.5 receptions. So 2 plays, Justin Jefferson, 7 catches, Cole Kmet, 3 catches, plus 284 on DraftKings. So almost 3-to-1 value on something that feels pretty free, if you ask me. Justin Jefferson, I think, is going to get to do whatever he wants. He plays in the slot. He gets to play away from Jalen Johnson, who doesn't travel. I think he's going to have a monster game, and he's had monster games against us in the past. And Cole Kmet, I was hesitant because I don't want to overdo this, but you did see Caleb Williams take that check down so much more cleanly in this last game against the Packers. So I'm taking Cole Kmet over 2.5 receptions, taking Justin Jefferson over 6.5 receptions, plus 284 on DraftKings. A nice little 3-to-1 opportunity to make some money despite the result, because I'm not betting the Bears. I'm not betting the money line. I'm not betting the spread. I did say I might dabble with the over-under. We'll see what the weather is like. But another week in the books. Appreciate all the love. Appreciate everybody listening to the Respect Coin podcast. And hopefully we can start the weekend right with a bunch of cash in this Bulls-Hawks game. So let's see if we can and let's see if the numbers kind of align, because the numbers are strong. The trends are nice. Normally, that means we could sit back, a little rocking chair winner on a Friday. So appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Respect Coin podcast. Peace.